Right, hello everybody. We're starting 5 minutes early. I hope that's okay. Can everybody hear me okay? If you can, just type hi or yes into the chat box. Hello, yes, okay, yes, hello, hello, hi, brilliant. Okay, super. Well, thank you all very much for coming. It's wonderful to see so many people here today. I guess it's nearly 7:30 your time. It's 8:30 my time. So when we finish this, it'll definitely be time for dinner. We're going to be talking for about 45 minutes or so. I'll try to make it not more than 45 minutes. And I'm actually going to be putting up quite a lot of information on the slides, but please don't feel you have to take lots of notes. You don't have to take any notes at all. At the end of the session, there'll be a PDF with all of the slides from the presentation that you can download and look at in your own time. So the title of this talk is Optimize Your Exam Preparation Classes Through Personalisation. Now, I don't know if you read the blurb, but just in case you haven't, I'm going to read it to you. Preparing teenagers for exams can be soulless and dry at times, and the tasks we get our students to do can be divorced from their lives and personal experience. In this session, we're going to look at how to bring in an element of student-centered personalisation to exam classes to aid interest and motivation. Now, I just want to focus on a couple of bits in that. First of all, preparing teenagers for exams can be soulless and dry at times. Would you agree with that? If you would agree with that, type yes into the chat box. And if you don't agree, type no. Yes, 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 yes. Right, I'm seeing lots of yeses. Good. Obviously, it's not good that preparing teenagers for exams can be soulless and dry. That's not good at all. But it's good that we agree. Justina says yes, sometimes. Right. And then the next bit, and the tasks we get our students to do can be divorced from their lives and personal experience. Would you agree with that as well? Let me just look at a few people typing. Yes, 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 yes. Yeah, it's actually quite odd. When you think about an exam, let's take first, but it could be any B1, B2 exam. It's actually difficult to think of a task that the students have to do in the exam that is the kind of thing they do in their real lives. In terms of reading, obviously, in their real lives, in their everyday lives, they're not doing multiple choice. They're not putting paragraphs or sentences into texts. So things like reading and listening, almost nothing that they do in the exam is really something they do outside of the classroom. With writing, I guess occasionally they write emails, but it's unlikely they're going to write the kind of emails that we expect them to write in the exam. And interestingly, with writing, the exam boards, the people who write the exams, they create this pretense. They pretend that it's real world. So they have questions like, you're going to enter an international short story competition, or write an article for an international young person's magazine, pretending that that's what our students, that's what teenagers actually do in their real lives. Now, my students don't do that in their real lives. Do yours? Let me just see a few comments. Do your students enter short story competitions, write for international young people's magazines? No, exactly. It's a pretense. We pretend it's the real world, but it's not. And that's a problem. So we're going to be thinking about personalisation. Now, personalisation is a weird word. It's actually difficult to say. Even I struggle saying it, personalisation. Obviously, we have the noun person, and the adjective from that, personal, and then a noun, personality. And then we have the verb to personalise. It can end in ISE or IZE. The Z is more American English, the S is more British English. And the noun from that verb is personalisation. And the Macmillan English Dictionary says to personalise, this is the verb, is to make or change something so that it's especially suitable for a particular person. and it says it's a close synonym of customize. In the real world, we love personalization. We love personalizing things. If you put the word personalization into Google and then click on images, there's all sorts of interesting things that people personalize in the real world. We personalize wedding invitations. Online, you can choose your font, you can choose your wording, you can choose your design. That's personalization. We choose our settings on our computer or on our phone. You can choose the photo for your desktop. On your phone, on some phones, you can choose your ringtone. That's personalization. You can personalize your clothes. You can have socks with whatever wording you like on. You can personalize furniture. This person has personalized their furniture by adding text to each drawer. More clothes. We love personalizing clothes, especially t-shirts. You can have a personal mug with your own personal message. Personalized jewelry. You can have your name made onto a piece of jewelry, a necklace. Even when you go to Starbucks, you choose whether you have milk or not, you choose whether you have decaf or not. In some sense, you're personalizing your coffee experience. My absolute favorite that I found in Google Images, this is a Christmas Santa Claus cat bowl, where you can personalize your cat bowl with your cat's name. Now, I happen to have two cats, Twinkie and Billy, so if you want to know what to get me for Christmas, two of those would be fantastic. Personalized cat bowls. I was joking, by the way, I do not want a personalized cat bowl for Christmas. But we personalize all sorts of things in the real world. So personalization, making or changing something so that it's suitable for someone. And you're making or changing it, doing something to it in a number of different ways. I don't want to spend long on this, I just want to race through these, but it might be a choice of different options or positions or settings or wording. Might be in terms of time. Just thinking about English language teaching or exams for a moment, if a student has dyslexia, they often get more time in a reading exam. In some senses, the exam has been personalized for their particular needs in terms of time. It might be in terms of budget. Rich people, when they buy a car, might personalize their number plate. So they don't just have numbers and letters, the letters spell out a word. Might be in terms of style or fashion or appearance or look, or needs or requirements or abilities or preferences, likes, dislikes, opinions, beliefs. Even something like geography or location, depending on your climate, for example, might determine what you personalize and how you personalize it. To those people who've just come in, yes, I'm afraid it did start a few minutes early. I'm not quite sure why, but you haven't missed much. And there will be a PDF that you can download at the end with all of the slides that you've missed. So that's in the real world, personalization. We can personalize things in a number of different ways. Whatever we're doing it to make something, I think, more appropriate, to give us a better experience, to give us better results, to give us greater satisfaction. That's generally, I think, why we personalize things. Now let's think about English language teaching in the classroom, making or changing something so it's especially suitable for a particular person. I think if we're going to think about personalization, we've got to think in terms of ELT, what are we personalizing, who's doing it, and who are they doing it for, because those might not be the same people. How are they doing it, and why are they doing it? And of course, with the education system as it is, I think there are a huge number of restrictions as to what we can do. We're very limited in terms of what we can personalize. We can personalize a classroom, for example, by putting up our work or our students' artwork or texts. But once again, classrooms are very limited. You might be limited by the position of the desks or the number of the students in the classroom. If you're using a course book, that limits you, that restricts you as to what you can personalize. If you're following a syllabus or working towards an exam, that's a severe restriction that limits you in terms of what you can personalize. The school timetable is a limit, etc., etc. There are all sorts of restrictions and limitations because of the system we work in. Having said that, I do think there are things that we can do to personalize our students' experience in the classroom, and particularly when working towards exams. Now, what I'm not suggesting for a second is that we give up as teachers control and give the control to the students. I don't think that's possible. I don't think that's possible or desirable either. When we're working towards exams, the teacher still has to be very much in control of the syllabus. And when we're teaching teenagers, and I'm particularly thinking about teenagers today, the teacher very much has to be in control. So the kind of personalization we're going to think about today is very much teacher driven. The teacher is in control, the teacher is deciding on what the personalization is. But it's personalization for the students. So it's teacher driven, but student centered. The student is the center of the focus. The aim is to give the students the best experience, to get the best results from the student. And I think there are two main kinds of personalization. There's personalization that's provided by the materials, by the course book, by the materials produced by the publisher. And there's personalization that's supplementary to that, that's produced by the teacher themselves. And I want to look at both types of personalization in this session. So let's start by looking at the first type, personalization provided within an exam-based course. Now, some of you may remember a few years ago, Steve Taylor-Knowles, my co-author, and I had a course called Laser. Some of you may have used, I don't know, doesn't matter if you did or you didn't. But in Laser, we had a little feature called Have Your Say. And this was focusing on personalization. And teachers really liked Have Your Say. There were lots of plus points. It was very quick. There was no planning. It was in the book at the end of the reading section or the listening section. It was very simple. It was given to you, given to the students. And it allowed the students to express their own opinions. And to relate what they'd read in the reading texts or what they'd listened to in the listening texts to their own experience. And it allowed students to practice speaking, to do some talking, when doing the reading section and the listening section of the course books. And teachers really liked Have Your Say. But there were some drawbacks as well. One of the drawbacks was it was only speaking. That was all that we were encouraging the students to do, was just talk. There was no writing, for example. There was a very limited range of tasks, a bit like this one here, just a question and then why. A very limited focus, usually focusing on giving opinion or expressing preference. And they were only in the reading and the listening sections. They weren't, for example, in the grammar or the vocabulary sections of the course, or use of English of the course book. So when we came to write Optimise, which is our new exams preparation course, we wanted to keep the idea of Have Your Say, keep the plus points, but try and solve the problem of the drawbacks. So we wanted to expand it. So it wasn't just reading and listening, it was also grammar, it was also vocabulary, it was also use of English, for example. It wasn't just speaking practice, it was also other things such as writing or research. It was an increased range of tasks, more variety in terms of what we were asking the students to do, and an increased focus, not just always focusing on expressing opinion, expressing preference. More systematic, so we were more careful what we covered when, and more integrated into the course. That was the aim. As I say, not just expressing opinion and preference. Those are, of course, important. And so we continue to have it expressing opinion and expressing preference, but also having a real focus on thinking critically about what you've read, what you've listened to, or the opinion of another student in the class. Reflecting, particularly in terms of reflecting on your studies, whether that's your studies in English or studies in other subjects. Doing research, writing as well as speaking, presenting, whether that's in written form or presenting to the front of the class, a very, very important life skill, and discussing with the group ideas. So we want to include all of those things into this new feature. And so after a bit of thought, we came up with 5 categories: think, research, culture, learn, and me. Think focuses on expressing opinion, expressing preference, and thinking critically about what you've read, listened to, or other people's opinions or preferences. Research is about, obviously, finding information. Now, that might be researching online, but it's not always that. It might be doing a class survey, or interviewing friends and family, or looking up the old-fashioned way in books, in dictionaries, for example. Culture, that's focusing on the student's own culture, their own language, their own country, their own local area. Learn, this is the reflection one. This is reflecting on how the students learn, how they study, both in terms of how they study English, but also other subjects at school. And then me is focusing on the student's personal and daily life, their family, their friends, their interests, their routines, their hobbies, etc. So we have those 5 categories. Now, this is a typical reading spread, and the text is all about old wives' tales and sayings like, should you go swimming for an hour after you've eaten, things like that. And then at the end, we have this section. It's not have your say anymore, but 5 different categories: think, research, culture, learn, and me. And this particular one is culture. So what old, similar to the ones in the article, do you have in your own cultural language? Iwona, if you can hear me, I've lost the chat box, and it would be nice to see the chat box. Okay. So if you could bring that back, I don't know what you've done. Thank you. Is that possible?
Yes.
Thank you. Super. So we've got the 5 categories at the top: think, research, culture, learn, and me. And this particular one is culture. Now, have a quick read of this one. And the question is, just type it into the chat box when you've read it. Do you think this is think, research, culture, learn, or me? Have a quick read of it. Anna thinks it's me. Kinga thinks it's me. Evelina thinks it's me. Absolutely. Yes, you could say it's think, because can you think of a time? And of course, these are not mutually exclusive. There is some crossover. Can we bring the chat box back, please?
Okay.
I'm going to use it quite a lot over the next few minutes. Is that possible?
Give me a second.
I didn't touch it, so I think it was you.
Yes, because someone says that can't see the whole slide, so I.
Oh, I see.
What to do? It's a disaster.
Let me move on to the next one. You carry on and try and find that, Iwona. I'll just move on to the next one. So have a read of that one, and then when we get the chat box back, type into the chat box what you think that one is. Are you getting anywhere, Iwona? I don't know how to pronounce your name properly.
I don't know why, but I can't.
Have we lost the chat box?
Yes. I'm sorry.
No? No luck?
No.
Was it you who turned it off? It wasn't me.
It was me. Oh. I can't find. Yes.
There it is. Well done. Brilliant.
Success.
Okay, success. Let's leave it there. Let's not turn it off for a few minutes. That's okay. So have a read of this one and then type into the chat box what you think this one is. Fairly simple one, I think. Is it think, research, culture, learn, or me? Oh, it's gone.
Okay.
That wasn't me. Okay, we're going to move on. We're going to move on. That one is learn, because it's about how the students actually do the correct task in the English exam. Right, it's back. Super. Let's move on to the next one. What do you think that one is? We're now on the third one. What do you think this one? This one's fairly straightforward, I think. Right, this one's culture, because it's about the student's own country, the student's own culture, the student's own myths and stories. What about this one? Yep, that's research. They're going online to find information. Exactly. Now, what about this one? What do you think this one is? Culture, exactly. It's popular culture. It's popular culture. It could also be think. It could also be me. But actually, I think the closest one is culture, because it's about X factor and shows like it in the student's own culture. What about this one? Yes, I think that one's think. It could be me, but it's not really about the students' own lives. It's about the student's own opinion, which I think is think. Once again, they're not mutually exclusive. Okay, so that's personalization within Optimise. We have those throughout the course. Let's move on now to think about personalization 2, to consolidate and extend an exam-based course or exam practice material. Now, the problem, as we said earlier, with exam practice material is that often it's soulless and dry, and most or all of the exam tasks that we're preparing our students for are divorced from their own lives. They're not the kind of things they do in their everyday lives outside of the classroom. So one solution, I think, is to relate. We obviously have to do exam practice material. We have to do exam practice tasks. I'm not one of these people who thinks that we need to spend all of the B2 year just doing exam practice, exam practice, exam practice. I think that's a mistake. But we have to do a certain amount of exam practice material. The students, when they go into the exam, they have to be very, very familiar with the tasks they're going to encounter. If they're not familiar, they're going to be at a disadvantage. So we have to do, unfortunately, some exam practice material, and that is completely divorced from their lives. So there's one solution, I think, is wherever possible to relate the exam practice material back to the students' own lives, back to the students' own interests and experience. And I think one of the easiest ways to do that is to follow the principle that we have in Optimise, which is to have a task, perhaps before the exam practice task, or perhaps after the exam practice task, and to tie it in some way with one of these categories: think, research, culture, learn, and me. Because I think these cover a broad range of the student's own experience, the student's own opinion in think, the student's own work doing research, the student's own culture, the student's own learning experience, and the student's own everyday lives. So to think of one of those categories and then pick a focus or more than one focus. So it might be expressing opinion, expressing preference, something to do with critical thinking, reflecting, researching, writing, presenting, discussing, could be one or more of those, and get them to do a task either before the exam practice task or after the exam practice task that in some way personalizes their experience. So here's a little task I want you to do. Now it's not easy in a webinar with a chat box, but we're going to give it a go. I want you to read this word formation task, so you understand what the exam task is. That will take you about 30 seconds to a minute. Then I want you to think, now, am I going to have a personalization task before this or after this? And when you've decided that, choose one of those categories, think, research, culture, learn, or me, choose a focus or two, and try and think of a simple but effective personalization task. And when you've got it, briefly type it into the chat box. Now, I know that's asking a lot, but if 1 or 2 people could do that, that would be wonderful. And then we could all see. So I'll give you a couple of minutes for that, and then we'll talk about it. If you didn't understand the task, then put a question in the chat box and I'll answer it. And I'll read the comments while you're doing that. So the first person to come up with a personalization task wins a prize. You don't really. Just glory. You could start the discussion about leisure time and someone's favorite games. Yes, absolutely. And then that leads into the exam practice task, playing chess. I think that's very simple and very effective. Very good. Anyone else got any ideas? Obviously, that one would be before the exam practice task. I don't know how to pronounce your name. Sorry, my Polish is dreadful. Is that Alicia? Writing, describe the difficult beginning of something that you learned. Does that tie into playing chess? I suppose it does, because of learning chess, learning the rules of chess. Right, talk about how you learned playing a game. Yes, excellent. Research a young chess champion from your country and make a presentation about him or her. Brilliant. That would be research, and that would also be culture, wouldn't it? I think that's a brilliant combination of the two. Yes, has any of your family members ever played chess? Exactly. Discussion about things they learned thanks to their hobby. Very good. Okay, I think all these ideas are excellent. Have a discussion after doing the exercise. Fantastic. I think those are really good ideas. Let's move on then. As we said, one of the problems is that exam tasks are divorced from the students' own lives. Most of the things, as we said, that we're asking the students to do in terms of exam practice, exam preparation, are nothing whatsoever to do with what they do outside of the classroom. So another solution, I think, is to try and introduce tasks and text types that the students can relate to. Now, just to repeat, as I said, of course we have to do the exam practice tasks. This is supplementary. This is in addition to the exam practice tasks. So, for example, the exam task that the students have to do is, for example, write an article for a young person's magazine. And as we agreed earlier in the webinar, most students in their real lives do not write articles for young people's magazines. So let's try and have a preparation task before the exam task that in some way brings in something that they do in their real lives, in their everyday lives. And here, one example could be actually forget an article for a young person's magazine. How about they write a social media post? Because that is something they do. They might only do it in Polish, and here they're doing it in English, but they're used to the idea of posting something on social media. So you get the topic that's essentially the same as the article, but you do it in the form of a social media post. Now, if you do have some kind of online sharing platform with your students, whether that's Facebook or WhatsApp or some other software, that's fantastic. I know some teachers do. If you don't, and if you can't because of security or safety issues, I know that's an issue, then you can still do this with paper and pen. So you get the students to write their social media post, And then they pass it around the class. Every student gets a different one from a different student. And then the students write comments. They read the post, they write a comment as if it was a comment on social media, on Facebook, and then they pass it on to the next student. And then the student who wrote the social media post, they take that back at the end and they use the information from the comments when it comes to them writing their finished piece of writing, which is the article for the Young Person's Magazine. So it's a very simple but very effective preparation task that brings in their real lives, their everyday lives, in a way that the exam task doesn't. Similarly with speaking, in many speaking exams, 2 students are given a task which they need to solve. Now, of course, that might happen in the real world, but it's more likely that if there's 2 or more students discussing something, your teacher is leaving and you want to get them a leaving gift. You're probably not going to sit round the table and have a formal discussion. You're more likely to do it through text messaging or a WhatsApp thread. And certainly that's a lot more fun for the students. So that's a very simple but effective preparation task for the exam practice task. Because of course, the writing of text messages or a WhatsApp thread is very, very informal. The register is essentially the same register as speaking. So it's not even as if they'll have to do a different register. So you get them to either on paper, if they don't have an online platform, or online if they do have an online platform, do the preparation work, coming up with the ideas, making suggestions, agreeing, disagreeing, expressing preferences, coming to a conclusion. You do that through a text message thread or a WhatsApp thread. And then afterwards, you do the exam practice task, which is actually the speaking task, and then they've already got all the ideas. Very simple, but very effective. Another problem, it's quite interesting when you think about it. In exams, it's 2018 and there is no video. The listenings are listened to an interview on the radio. Who listens to the radio anymore? I don't think many people do they? Video, however, in the real world is everywhere. On Facebook, on social media, it's audio visual. It's not just audio. So the more video we can bring in, I think, to exam preparation, the more interesting and real life it is for our students. And I'm sure many of you already use video. If you don't, though, I would encourage you to use it because it is so real world for our students. Of course, it might third-party generated video, so video you find online, such as a YouTube link, or more interestingly, it might be student-generated video. These days, of course, teenagers all have access to smartphones and tablets. It is so easy to produce your own video. Students are doing it in their life outside of the classroom all of the time. If we can link that to their exam practice work, then all the better. In terms of the third-party generated content, just a few ideas. A game show in English, The Chase, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? There are loads of game shows in English, great for vocabulary. A karaoke version of a song, there's tons of karaoke songs on YouTube. Or even a clip providing an example of the vocabulary that you've done in class, or the grammar, or a key pronunciation point. But more interestingly, as I said, student-generated video. It could be an interview with a family member who speaks English, or a friend. 2 or more students could put together a short play, or a documentary, or do a video blog or a diary, or make an instructional video, how to repair the tire on a bike, for example, giving instructions in English. Great use there of the imperative and other ways of explaining, giving instructions to someone how to do something, or even just a simple self-recording in terms of pronunciation or grammar or a song. Justina says you use Messenger. Excellent, exactly. Brilliant for those kind of things. Another problem, like exams don't have video, exams are very much a paper world. When you're reading articles. You're not reading things online. And there are a few exceptions, as we said earlier. There is write an email. Of course, in the real world, as we've said, there is a major digital online aspect to our students' lives. Of course, they've got physical hobbies, physical interests, they're still doing sport, but a lot of their lives is digital and online. So the more we can incorporate that into our exam prep work, the more they'll feel it next to their real life. We've said a lot of these: social media, posts and comments, messaging, we've said that, links, JPEGs, GIFs, emoticons, emojis, screenshots, video and audio files, apps and websites. All of these, I think, the more we can bring these in to preparation tasks leading to exam practice tasks, then the better it is, the more interesting it is, the more motivating it is for our students. So just one example, grammar, comparatives and superlatives. You've done the grammar sections in the course book, you've done the grammar sections in the grammar book. Then let's have a task that's more real world. For example, students do a comparison of prices and or products on amazon.co.uk, a UK website in English, versus an online store or online stores in their own country. So bringing in culture, again, bringing in their own experience, and it's very real world. And so they look at certain products. You might want to give them a category like electronic goods, and they compare the prices, they compare the products, and then they either, depending on their level or what you want them to do exactly, they might write sentences, or they might write a written report, or they might come to the class and give a spoken presentation to the rest of the class. Great use there of grammar, comparatives and superlatives in this case, for a real world activity. Now, what's this? What's this? It's not a trick question. First person to tell me what this is gets a prize. Puzzle, be more specific. A jigsaw. It's a jigsaw. Now, it's a jigsaw, but it's not just any jigsaw. It's an online jigsaw. And it's not just any online jigsaw. It's an online jigsaw with text. And it's not just any old online jigsaw with text. It's an online jigsaw with text that I produced. I put some text into a Word document, turned it into a JPEG, and then uploaded it to Jigsaw Planet. And now with a link, anybody can go there and can do the jigsaw. And this is lots of fun. I think I'm a big believer in fun, even in exam prep classes, particularly with teenagers, particularly with younger teenagers, but even older teenagers, even adults like fun. And this is, once again, it's very simple, but it's very effective. And there's lots of different things you can do with it, I think. One way is that the teacher produces a text in a Word document, turns it into a JPEG, and uploads it to a site like Jigsaw Planet. It might be the instructions for the homework for one night. So before the students know what the homework is, they have to solve the jigsaw. Or it might be a list of vocabulary items to learn. These are just examples. I'm sure you can think of more exciting, better things. It might be a supplementary grammar or vocab task. So before they do the task, they have to solve the jigsaw. Could be a model composition to help them with their piece of writing. Could be a short reading text. Could be exam information or tips on how to do a particular exam practice task, etc., etc., etc. It could be all sorts of things. That's if you as the teacher produces it, but of course it could also be student produced. It could be a composition, an article for a young people's magazine, or their social media post. And then the other students have to unscramble it to solve the jigsaw before they comment on it. Of course, it doesn't have to be just text. It could include a picture, an image. It could be a recipe with a photo of the dish. Could be song lyrics with a photo of the band. It could be a screenshot. Could be a screenshot of some online text or a list of products on Amazon. could be a set of instructions, could be all sorts of things. A bit of fun that interests, engages, and motivates the students, which is what we want to achieve in our, in inverted commas, boring exam practice preparation classes. In the PDF that you'll be able to download in a few minutes, there's the link to the jigsaw I produced. So you just type that in and it'll take you there. My jigsaw is actually 100 pieces, which doesn't sound a lot, but it's actually quite a lot. And try doing it. It's not easy. So you might want to experiment with creating jigsaws that are going to pieces. Experiment with doing jigsaws that are fewer pieces. Right, that's basically, we've come to the end. I hope you found that interesting. I hope it gave you a few ideas. They really were just some ideas to get you thinking. Just 3 final questions for you to think about over dinner tonight. How important do you think personalisation is in exam prep classes? How easy or difficult do you think it is to incorporate it into lessons and homework? And do you think you'll try to incorporate more personalisation into your lessons? I hope the answer to the 3rd question is yes, I will. It might be no, because you do lots already, in which case, fantastic. But I've been talking now for pretty much 45 minutes, so I'm going to be quiet. But if any of you have any final comments or questions, then please type them into the chat box now. But thank you all very, very much for coming.